Now, I think by now we understand that the market value for Lydians comes from their use in business applications. So the next question that obviously arises, and that came up for myself, and I was thinking about this years ago, was how are Lydians getting used in business critical applications? What problems are they solving? So as I mentioned, the first ever use case for Lydian apps emerged organically in the healthcare industry for the adjudication of drug pricing contracts among pharma companies, health insurers, and healthcare providers, such as hospitals, based on long-term clinical outcomes, a critical business need that centralized cloud-based systems were not able to effectively or efficiently solve, despite significant investment, significant attempts by major players in the tech sector and the healthcare sector. Around 2018, Jennifer actually was working on a number of innovative solutions to oncology drug pricing problems with a number of major US pharma companies, and was acutely aware of this business need. And this is actually what prompted her and myself to start working on the idea of Lydians. Jennifer, did you want to explain this problem in a bit more detail and your insights that led to the invention of Lydians?
Arka, of course. So in my work with these pharma companies, as Arka mentioned, they all expressed a pretty strong demand to implement innovative contracts based on clinical outcomes. So the idea here is that the drug price that the pharma company receives varies depending on how successful the drug is in the real world at achieving clinical outcomes for patients. And these types of contracts can make high-cost therapies more accessible to patients. They provide a bit of a backstop for insurance companies' risk and how much they would be paying out, while still making sure that pharma companies are getting essentially a fair or a value-based revenue number based on the actual outcomes clinically that the drugs are delivering. And both pharma companies and insurance companies over the past few years have been clamoring to adopt and implement these types of contracts because it just seems to be good for business for them on both sides of those. There, however, is a pretty significant data hurdle here. Neither pharma companies nor insurers, nor in some cases hospitals that are party to these contracts can really access or interpret the specific data they would need to fully adjudicate one of these contracts, because that data is owned and controlled by other parties to the contract. And there are business, privacy, legal, regulatory reasons why that data can't be shared at a specific patient data level. So sometimes this data can only be shared in aggregated or anonymized formats, and really that doesn't give the level of specificity and granularity that these companies need to back up these multi-million-dollar contracts and very large deals. And they also really don't trust the data that's coming from the other parties, especially when there's so much money at stake in these contracts. So as Arka mentioned, once we started working on this together, we actually were able to solve this and gain some commercial adoption for our solution really quickly. So we're talking about an 8-month timeframe really from when we started iterating on this to when we had this in the market with a couple of big pharma companies. So how does this work exactly? How can the data required for contract adjudication be shared between these parties without actually sharing all of the data? Well, Arka had been architecting an engine for distributed applications to turn data into a unique format. Now that is what we call the Lydian. It can store the data in vaults, use it in business applications without the participants losing control and visibility over the transactions of the underlying data. So he'll talk a little bit more about exactly how that works from a technology perspective, but it really did lead to our company's early commercial success with some of the big partners that Arka mentioned, Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, and others. We also co-authored a patent in 2018 that now, as of June of this year, has been issued that covers a lot of the core technology and inventions around Lydians in the Lydian engine.